Hamka Hasan is going to deliver a speech now about the pilgrims, Indonesian pilgrims, between jihad and political diplomacy. Indonesia has a unique feature. Indonesia has a quota of 235,000. The population of Indonesia is 250 million. But the ratio of the Muslims is about 80%. So the normal quota would be 250,000. So this is the reason for the difference in the quota. Now we'd like to hear about the Indonesian experience. It's important for us and for many other countries. For the sake of efficient use of time, I would like to pass the floor to Dr. Hamka Hasan now. Mr. Hamka Hasan, can you hear us? Yes, I can hear you. How are you? Thank you. Fine. Thanks to God, I'm fine. So, best greetings from Ankara, Turkey, and the Presidency of Religious Affairs to you and to the people of Indonesia. I would like to hear from you the Indonesian experience. The floor is yours. I start with the name of the God who is the merciful. God be pleased with all of us. We all ask for the assistance of God, and we give all our prayers to His messenger, Prophet Muhammad. At the onset of my speech, I would like to thank the Presidency of Religious Affairs of Turkey for organizing this event about Hajj. Thanks a lot for your efforts. Well, the topic of this session is quite an important one, and I am going to speak about the Indonesian pilgrims, Indonesian Hajj, in this framework, in this context, and I'm going to Indonesian pilgrims from the perspective of jihad and political diplomacy. I would like to start from the very beginning. Since the 17th century, in fact, there have been the trips organized, and this is a big and long journey. So it's a long history. You know, the Indonesian pilgrims also practicing their obligations despite certain difficulties, and I would like to talk about the distance between jihad, political diplomacy, the colonization by the Netherlands, and many other things. First of all, I'd like to start with the 17th century. The pilgrims, in fact, wanted to go to Mecca from Indonesia sometime before the Ramadan. They would like to have their psalm there. They wanted to have the Tarawih prayer there. They wanted to stay there 5 months. That was their plan. Well, they took a ship for this voyage, and from Aceh, they started the voyage, and then they reached India, later on Yemen, Hadramaut, and then they arrived in Jeddah. And that journey took about 6 months, with everything included. Of course, they faced some dangers during this journey, this voyage. Sometimes there was a risk that the ship would sink, and some travelers, in fact, could get lost in the sea, get drowned, and the pirates were there. They could steal their property. So it was not possible for the pilgrims to reach the Arabic Peninsula safely, and they would get sick occasionally during their stay in Mecca and Medina. And in 1858, the government stipulated that found out that just half of the pilgrim candidates could turn back to the country. Some died in Medina, some got lost for various reasons. And in 1930, some improvement was initiated as regards the Hajj and the loss related to disease and the related death ratio was reduced to 10%. So from also Singapore through the channel, there were some alternative routes, and also the flight routes were not very active in those years. In 1990, there was the cholera outbreak in Mecca, and about 700 people were taken to Indonesia from Mecca by ships. They didn't have proper accommodation conditions. In fact, a high number of people died on the way. In fact, the Dutch consular in Jeddah just ordered a physician to be available on board on the ship. If it weren't there, there would be a higher number of deaths. But they were afraid of the colonization, the Dutch colonization. The Dutch colonial attitude, their attitude towards Islam. About their dominance in management, administration, and trade. So according to Indonesians, that creates a political line. So this is also the opinion of the Dutch colonial government. In 1810, the Dutch made a decision to allow the troops, and the mobility in Indonesia was permissible, and the aim of this permission was to prevent any movements. In fact, the citizens wouldn't go into any conflict with the government by this way, and they wouldn't harm or damage the benefits of the interests of the Dutch government. In 1825, there came another important decree about Hajj. For about 110 francs, it would be possible to go on pilgrimage, according to that decision. The second the topic is related to the relation between Hajj and the fear of colonization by the Dutch. The pilgrims who stay in Mecca have an important position. Sometimes they are perceived as potential people who can go into a unity against the colonial government. In fact, the colonial states gave some orders to the consulates in the Middle East, and when those pilgrims, in fact, go to certain areas, for example, in Constantinople, in certain places, they should be under observation, because those people, in fact, can go into communication with the authorities in the Middle East, and they can create a threat against the colonial government and the colonizers, and that was the content of a decision that was issued in early 19th century again. Now, I would like to talk about Hajj and international diplomacy. In the mid-17th century, the Java kings asked for itiraf from Mecca Sultanate. In fact, that would be a title to be claimed from Mecca, and it would support the power of the kings. And Hamidul Harraymi had the authority and influence in the Islamic region that was known in the Mecca, and the kings in Indonesia, in fact, they really wanted to have this title of the Sultan. They really deemed this important, and but this is also ends up with a fear of colonization, anti-colonization. Well, Dr. Hamka, I think you know that you have 15 minutes in this session. Maybe I forgot telling this to you at the beginning, but now let me warn you that you have 5 minutes left. Indonesian pilgrims, when they go to Mecca and Medina, of course, when they go there, they would like to get some science, get some education, and when they come back to their homeland, they would like to continue with those activities. And in the Arabic Peninsula, the pilgrims meet with their brother Muslims from different countries, and they have the chance of learning about different developments and progresses in other Islamic countries. And this information can be imported into the freedom movements in Indonesia. That is what happened. Hamza Fan Suri, Sufi, got a great deal of education and learning in Mecca and Medina. It's an important figure in the history. And Sheikh al-Mukassiri went to the Arabic Peninsula in the 17th century, and he came back to Indonesia in 1670. He got his education from many scholars, and he studied Sufism. He taught Sufism, and from Al-Qurani he also learned about philosophy, Sufism, and Kalam. You know, these are very difficult sciences. And there's a very important book that is written in that age. It is politically important because it was written in an anti-colonial way, and it was written against the Dutch colonizers. And Abdurrahman Singli is a Sufi who stayed for a long time in Mecca, and Shati Sufi order was his order, and then he became a Marawi, and so he's a well-known person. These are the prominent figures of our history. I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity. God's peace and mercifulness will be upon you. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Hamka Hasan.